What's up, gentlemen? It's been a long NFL season, and one that has unfortunately not gone well for the Cleveland Browns. But it has gone well for two teams specifically. Two teams that have vanquished the odds, managed to beat the narrative, beat the stories, and they've managed to make it long playoff runs into the Super Bowl. Now, in order to understand what kind of game we're going to have in the Super Bowl, we have to understand these two teams, what makes them tick, what kind of star players they have, and how they got here. So let's start off by talking about preseason for both of these teams, which, as most of you will likely know, are the Bengals and Rams. The Bengals, being from Cincinnati, have not been to a Super Bowl since 1988 and haven't won a playoff game previous to this year since 1991. Back in 1991, my dad was in college and my mom was in high school. I was over a decade from being born. The internet was basically not as what it is today. The text message had not yet been invented. We were still in beginning our dates with one instead of two. Everything was much, much different, and it was over 30 years ago. Now they're back with a young quarterback named Joe Burrow from Athens, Ohio, in the southeast of the state. He's sort of a homeboy for the Cincinnati Bengals. Could have been the same for the Browns, but unfortunately we have Baker Mayfield instead. He went to Ohio State, couldn't get playing time, so he went down to Louisiana in the Bayou in order to figure out a way for himself to be able to play. He not only played in college that year, but ended up making it big with Louisiana State University. And he ended up winning the national championship and Heisman, having a historic season with the Tigers. After that, it was the first pick in the draft for him. And who had the pick but the Cincinnati Bengals? After something known as the Tank Bowl between them and the Dolphins, the Bengals managed to get the first pick in the draft and naturally took Joe Burrow, the best quarterback prospect seemingly in a while. Poor Andy Dalton had to settle for a backup role on the Cowboys after being gotten rid of by the Bengals for their new young star. And then the next year they had, the fourth pick? And they took, rather than an offensive lineman, which looked like it could be a need, they managed to take an ambitious pick and take Joe Burrow's former teammate at LSU, wide receiver Jamar Chase. It looked crazy. Everyone was concerned whether Joe Burrow would be hurt during the season. No one thought that it would work out. They were the worst team in the AFC North. The other three teams the previous season had all made the playoffs. The Bengals had gone, 6-10, 5-11. It's unimportant because they were towards the bottom of the NFL. Nobody thought they'd even make the playoffs, let alone make a deep playoff run. Sure, they had star power, but that wouldn't be enough in this league where the offensive and defensive lines need to be good. Their one free agent signing that really made a big moment for them was defensive lineman Trey Hendrickson. They signed him from the New Orleans Saints as a free agent. People thought he was just a one-season wonder, that he wouldn't perform in Cincinnati, that it was a waste of money, waste of cap space. It turned out that they'd be wrong. He was a very helpful piece in the defense that ended up being very good for them. They only had a few good pieces, but they managed to win their games in the playoffs, beating the Raiders, who, in all honesty, after an insane season, were just lucky to make the playoffs. Then they faced up against the Tennessee Titans, one of the worst number one seeds in a long time. Ryan Tannehill threw, 3 or 4 picks and blew the game for them, and the Bengals continued. Then they had the first real test after a big game with the Buffalo Bills in which they won based on the overtime coin toss. The Kansas City Chiefs were ready to make their third Super Bowl in a row, and all that stood between them and doing that was Joe Burrow's Cincinnati Bengals. Fortunately for Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they managed to vanquish the Kansas City Chiefs. After the Kansas City Chiefs went up 21-3, the Bengals came storming back and took it to overtime at 24-24. After the Chiefs won the coin toss, Patrick Mahomes threw an interception in overtime, giving the Bengals the advantage. They managed to come and score a field goal to end it and make the Super Bowl. On the other side, from the NFC, you have the Los Angeles Rams, a team that was designed to make the Super Bowl. they really threw the house at a quarterback this past offseason, and that was the big change for the Rams. They took their mediocre quarterback, Jared Goff, and traded him in for the guy who was banished to play with the Lions for a decade, banished to never win a playoff game, screwed by the draft, never had a chance, and they managed to throw the house at him. That was Matthew Stafford. And not only in this year did he win his first playoff game, but he is now in his first Super Bowl in his first season with the Los Angeles Rams. But don't get me wrong, he's not even the greatest piece they have. Wide receiver Cooper Kupp has had a breakout year, going from an average wide receiver in the league to one of the league's best and a Pro Bowler. This man has the highest receiving yards, highest touchdowns, highest any receiver stat. He pretty much has number one in it. They also have the star of the team, Aaron Donald, on the defensive line. One of the best players to ever do it, not only on the defensive line, but in any position. They have Jalen Ramsey, probably the best cornerback in the league. They have bolstered that with Odell Beckham Jr. from the Browns after he got in a fight with Baker, and now he's in the Super Bowl. The Browns failed to make the playoffs. They also brought in Von Miller from the Broncos, looking like he was past his prime. He managed to have a little bit of a career renaissance in a good team like the Rams. They have many other good players, and they really are a star-studded lineup for a star-studded city. They're a team that is trying to win the hearts of Los Angeles, and their young coach, Sean McVay, is trying to win his first Super Bowl, as is Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Ramsey, and the whole gang. They look like the favorites here. They obviously have the better players, the better coach, the better team, the better offensive line, the better defensive line. I mean, they really look like the favorites, but you cannot bet against the young duo from Cincinnati and LSU, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. We can talk more specifics in another video, but as for that, that's all I have for the preview for right now. I'll see you guys later.